When you eliminate the want, if you take the safety net away, right. I have to do this to survive. It forces you to a creativity.
Welcome back to the Six. I am here with my man, Mr. Mike Maron, CEO of Holy Name Medical Center over in Teaneck, New Jersey. And as always, off camera, we're having a lively discussion over here at Picari Grill.
Yes, we are.
Michael shared with us some great stories. And I want to talk a little bit about a story you just shared with us. I want to share it with the audience. And it's about how saying no to a lifetime opportunity can lead to an incredible life for you. And so let's talk a little bit about the Frito-Lay story.
Okay. So as a senior at Providence College, we finished the last segment talking about following my brother there. Mm-hmm. They have an interview process, and as an accountant, I had automatically been granted interviews with the big 8 firms. Mm-hmm. Everybody else, you have to bid on the companies that you want to interview for. And one of my brother's friends really strongly suggested that I bid on Frito-Lay because if you make it to the second round, they fly you to Dallas, Texas. Okay. And you get to spend a weekend in Dallas, Texas on Frito-Lay's dime and have a good time. Okay. And so...
Sounds like a good gig to me.
Sounds like a good gig. So I said, all right, I'm going to put a lot of chips in the Frito-Lay bin. I win the interview, the opportunity to go in the interview. The day of the interview, I'm playing basketball with Ernie DiGregorio in the gym at Providence College.
The Ernie DiGregorio.
The Ernie DiGregorio, and a bunch of other guys, and we're having a real competitive game. And all of a sudden I realize, as the game's winding down, but still going on, oh my God, I got an interview, I'm going to miss it.
The man had his priorities straight.
And they're all giving me a hard time, like, you can't leave. I'm like, no, I got to go. And they're like, no, we got to finish the game. I'm like, I got to go. I can't. And I realized that if by the time I ran back to my apartment and showered and changed, I'd miss it completely.
Right.
So I had to make the decision to show up as I am, sweaty in gym clothes, and try to throw myself on the sword. And so that's what I did. And I get to the interview, I'm still late, all apologetic. Young woman interviewing me, and she said, "It's okay. You're here. Sit down." And one of the lessons I learned there was at that time, all pretense, anything that I was going to play act was gone because I figured I've blown this. Right. So I was me. There was no false.
That's such a great lesson for the folks listening and watching today is honesty and authenticity.
Yes.
Always win.
Exactly.
They always win.
Be yourself.
They trump everything else.
Be yourself. If it's meant to be and you're yourself, then it's all going to work out.
It takes a lot of faith.
Yeah, a lot of faith. Got to believe. And I didn't necessarily believe it at the time, but I look back in hindsight, another strong life lesson.
Right.
So I interview with the woman, and lo and behold, I get the trip to Dallas.
Right.
Now I have to tell you, my whole motivation for this interview really wasn't a weekend in Dallas. Here I am, a senior in college. I had never been on an airplane.
Wow.
This was my first opportunity to actually fly.
Okay.
And so that was the excitement for me. The weekend in Dallas actually turned out to be nice and interesting, but it was all about flying.
Incredible.
Fly to Dallas, Texas, meet a lot of people, a lot of really nice people, but a lot of people who were wedded and coming from broken marriages because they had to make a choice between family life and my spouse or the company and moving around to advance my career, and they chose the latter.
It's amazing because we hear so often today, and I know you do because of the capacity you serve in, quality of life.
Exactly.
All right, as an employee of a company, and people seeking out a more balanced quality of life. That wasn't even in the realm of context back in those days. It was like you married yourself to the company. Right. The company said jump, you said how high. Right. We want you here, you said when.
That's it.
And you just did it. And you looked at that picture in front of you and said, that is not the life for me. You said no to that type of a lifestyle, no?
Dude, I was not that interested in doing that. It was not something where I would have to move and relocate all around the country, actually all around the globe, in order to sort of advance my career. That was the only way to advance forward. Okay. So I wasn't really intrigued. I didn't think I hit a home run on that interview either, but the same thing. Remember, my whole motivation was the flight. I got it. So when I went into the interview, I was more genuine. I was me. Because I didn't really expect to get anything out of it. I said, there's no way they're going to offer me a job, right? I fly back to Providence. 2 days later, I get a phone call. Congratulations, Mike. We want to offer you to be a supervisor at our beef jerky plant in Cornwall Heights, Pennsylvania.
The call everybody's waiting for.
Right. Now, you have to remember, back then, this is 1981, the gold standard for a college graduate, didn't matter what your major was to be an auditor at one of the big 8 accounting firms.
Absolutely.
If you could get that job, that was one of the highest paying, most secure jobs with a good career path where you knew you were going to go. And I had been offered a job by Ernst and Winnie back then,
right.
One of the big 8, to become an auditor. I was an accountant. Wasn't really thrilled about it. Went on this interview. They offered me more than what Ernst and Winnie offered.
So a
to
bigger
be an
paycheck
auditor.
to go to Frito-Lay.
To go to Frito-Lay.
Wow.
To be a supervisor at a beef jerky plant in Cornwall Heights, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I turned it down. And to a lot of people, it's like, are you crazy? Do you know how, including the recruiter, the chief recruiter at Frito-Lay, who was very upset at me, called me out on how much money they spent interviewing me, flying me to Dallas, putting me through the interview process. The 2,000 people I beat out for this job offer. Where was it? Where he was imputing my character.
Right.
Where are you? What were you? How dare you?
Amazing. Imputing your character when you were demonstrating exactly what character is and should be. Right?
Yeah. And so I stood my ground and said, no, I'm turning down the job. He was so upset. He called my parents, got my mother on the phone.
That's amazing to me. That's amazing.
Challenged her as to what kind of young man she raised that I would turn her down. And my mother, very docile, very friendly, religious woman, just said, well, if you knew Michael the way we know Michael, he has a tendency to be a little independent. We never quite know. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to change his mind. I'm so sorry, but he's going to do what he wants to do. And at that time, I went back to painting houses.
Amazing. So you say no to the big paycheck and you say yes to going back to finding your path in life.
Right.
Right.
And I didn't know where that was going to go. And my mother finally grew tired of me being around the house and painting houses and said, you didn't go to college to do this.
Right.
And one day on the steps of St. Joe's in Oradell, ran into a former priest who was a friend of hers who worked in the human resource department at Valley Hospital.
Sure, know it well.
And said, could you get my son a job? Because he also has his health degree, and he thought about going into hospitals. Is there anything at Valley? And lo and behold, I became a budget analyst working for, who's still the CFO at Valley today, a good friend of mine, Rich Keenan. Mm-hmm. That was my very first job out of college.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So
at a fraction of what Frito-Lay was willing to pay.
But you weren't chasing the money, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You weren't chasing the money. And listen, that's a common challenge these days with the kids in the world, looking at everything they see on the little screens, the big screens, the money, the fame, the fortune.
Right.
Very little patience. You had the patience to go through the process or the path. And it's a little bit different than what the kids are seeing today. So kudos to you. At this point in time, are you still dating Diane?
Still dating Diane.
Hadn't proposed yet?
Had not proposed yet.
Okay.
Actually had just bought my grandparents' house in Paramus, New Jersey.
Okay.
Because the same thing, I looked at it and said, all right, now I have a job. I'm not staying home anymore. This is not for me.
Right.
And realized that I'd pay as much in rent. And so my grandmother moved out with my aunt and uncle. They were going to sell the house, and I approached my uncle, who lived in Ridgewood for a long time, very, very successful man, was the president of Alliance Capital, Dave Dival.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I said to Uncle Dave, what if I bought Norna's house? This is the Italian side of me.
Yep.
And would it be possible if she took back the mortgage, because I have nothing to qualify for a mortgage.
A little bit different back then.
A little different.
No.
And when interest rates were 18%.
I remember those days.
And I said, and my uncle said, you know what, that's perfect. Let's establish a market value. She'll take back the mortgage. You pay her every month. We'll keep track of this and we'll sell the house to you. Mm-hmm. So none of the other grandchildren were interested. They were all like, who wants that house?
Right.
And so I moved into Paramus in 1981.
Okay.
The later part of 81, or actually early 82. And then Diane and I still dating, and now going out for 6 years. And she says, all right, what are we doing? She kind of put the screws to me.
Atta girl, Diane.
Yeah, and basically said, are we making a further commitment? And without any fanfare, again, everybody now these days. So here I am in my grandparents', now my kitchen, unrenovated. So it's literally from the 1950s. And no grand plans. I go out and I get an engagement ring. And one day, she's sitting at the kitchen table at the house, and I just get on my knee and I hand her the ring and I said, "Do you want to get married?"
Oh, there you go.
So no big fanfare, no
drama.
nothing, and that was it. And so we ended up getting married within, much to her parents' surprise, because we got married so quickly, they thought she was pregnant. And she wasn't. They're like, "Why are we doing this so fast? You're not telling us something." Right. So we got engaged in April and we were married in August.
Wow. Okay.
But we've been going out for 6 years, and I had the house.
And you knew.
And we knew.
You know.
We knew. With Diane, it was funny, and again, who would have known? She tells the story better than I. We're driving home one day, the first time we were in Providence, to introduce her to my parents, and we're coming down, we get off the Parkway, and we're coming down Ordell Avenue, and we pull up to the corner of Ordell Ave and Forest, at the light, famous
Hallowed
light.
ground. Hallowed ground.
I look across the street, and I said, "You see that building?" She said, I said, "That's where I went to high school." And she said, "Really?" And this was before I bought the house in Paramus. And I said, "Someday my kids are going to go to that school."
Oh my, I got goosebumps right now.
Right? Someday I had no idea, one, we would get married, two, I'd be living in the area,
Right.
three, that I would have four boys, all of who went to Bergen Catholic.
Blessed.
All of who went to Providence College. And that's kind of how my life sort of dots aligned, right? If you listen to Steve Jobs and say somewhere along the line, we have to figure out in hindsight how to connect the dots. And that's a leap of faith. My dots all just sort of connected that way.
But I think the key word is faith. You had faith. That you were on the right path.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
And you had, I think, confidence in yourself that you were making the right decision for yourself, correct?
I did, but honestly, Sandy, when I look back in hindsight, it wasn't so much faith. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, why would I have said that? Why would I have done this? Why did this happen? So hindsight is 2020.
It is, but
I didn't see it at the time.
Intuition. I think gut instinct and
There was a
intuition.
gut. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that, and the audience knows this. I talk about it with each and every guest, how important intuition and trusting your gut is.
Yep.
And you're a guy that trusts your gut. I know that about you.
Yeah.
How'd you find your way from Valley to Holy Name Medical Center?
So quick story, I'm at Valley for 3 years. And Mike Azzara was the CEO, and he told me, pulls me aside, and he says, "You know what? You should leave. Because Keenan and these other people, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
And you're going to get stagnated here. So you should move out."
Wow.
Good friend of mine, Dennis Miller, gets the CFO job at Pascack Valley. Calls me and says, "Would you come over and be a manager here, be my director of budget reimbursement?" I said, "Sure." So I moved from Valley to Pascack Valley,
sure.
1984. And Dennis, I'm there for a year, and Dennis has a big blow up with Lou Eaker, who's this president and CEO of Pascack Valley. Smart guy, very successful guy. Came from a very wealthy family. Dennis leaves. Dennis wants me to go with him. And again, I say, "No, I'm going to stay." I'm 26 years old. Lou Eaker calls me down to his office with one of the board members, a guy by the name of Dick Myers, very senior guy, very successful Merrill Lynch executive, and says, "We want you to become the CFO of Pascack Valley Hospital."
At 26.
At 26. And I said, "Really? Why?" And he says, "Because we think you could do the job." And Lou Eaker had been his CFO, and he says, "Any questions?" And Dick Meyer, a financial guy, he says, "We both believe you can do the job." And I said, "Fine, I'll become." So at 26 years old, I became the CFO at Pascack Valley.
That's incredible. That's a mind blower. I got to be honest with you, because most 26-year-olds, they don't have the gravitas or the presence
to be able to do that. Yeah,
right?
And a lot of that from my work ethic from early on, having to be on my own and pay my way through college, and so I had a different maturity, if you will, about it. Not by design, but just sort of happened that way. And so I become the CFO. I worked for Lou for a couple of years. Opportunity comes up at Holy Name. Dennis Miller now goes down to Holy Name and says, "Why don't you come?" He's a COO. Holy Name is in dire straits. They were out of cash. They had an extended credit line with the banks, failed computer conversion. They hadn't sent bills out in 6 months. It's a train wreck.
Oh, my goodness.
And people are looking at me saying, Pascack Valley, it's a good place.
Right.
You guys are on firing on all cylinders. Why would you leave Pascack Valley to go to Holy Name? It's wedged between Englewood and Hackensack.
Yep.
It's got no money. It's going to fail. And my response was, at that time, now I'm 28, I said, well, I'm 28 years old. If I'm going to take a chance and a risk in life, now's the time to do it. I don't have children.
That's a lesson right there.
Right? I should go. And so, much to Lou Eaker's chagrin, and I will forever credit him for a big part of my success, because there are not a lot of people who would take a gamble on a 26-year-old.
No question about it.
And he did. And just like Rich Keenan at Valley provided me some great worldly advice that set me on the path, Eaker took a big chance, set me on the path. I go down to Holy Name in 1987 as the CFO. Turns out that Dennis Miller doesn't work out at Holy Name either, leaves Holy Name. I decide to stay. Sister Patricia Lynch is the president. She makes me the executive vice president. She's diagnosed with cancer and says, basically, everybody reports to you, but I want to hold on to the president title. I said, that's fine. I wasn't about that. I was the executive vice president for a number of years, and in 1997, right before Patricia passed away, I became the official title of president and CEO of Holy Name.
Wow. So that's 22 years ago?
Yeah. Yes, 22
years ago. I didn't mean to test the math. You were an accountant, though, bro.
No, you did.
Come on. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going on at Holy Name these days, because, look, I come from an automotive background. I see consolidation happening at a really rapid pace in a lot of industries. I see it happening in healthcare at a breathtaking pace right now.
Right.
You guys have been able to maintain your independence.
Correct.
As a medical services provider, but also as a Catholic mission-based medical services provider. How have you guys been able to remain independent, and how important is the Catholic portion or the Catholic mission to what you do on a daily basis?
Very important. And so there's a blending here of principles, cultures, and values that are very important in all things Catholic, but are also very important in all things healthcare and healing when you take it from a mission approach as opposed to a business approach.
Right.
So one of the things that differentiate us is that culture, that we treat everybody who comes there. We try to. We're not perfect. Nobody is, right?
Nobody is perfect.
But we try to treat everybody who presents to us, the several 100,000 inpatient and outpatients a year that present to us, as if they were our family member. Right? There is a strong teaching in all Catholic principles, actually Judeo-Christian principles, that we look at each other, and George Bush quoted this once in one of his speeches, very, very good, that we need to see the image of God that is in each one of us. And when we see that and we act accordingly, we will act justly and morally, so that everything comes in line, and we won't act selfishly. But if I fail to see you, if I look at you, Sandy Cerami, and I don't see, with all your uniqueness, because there's only one Sandy Cerami, right? Thank God, right? But a good one.
Right.
There's an image of God in me, and I have to be able to get in touch with that. And even if you can't, and I have to realize that it's there and treat you with the respect and the accordance as if I was treating God himself.
Well, you guys, you've delivered on that culturally, because I have been in the hospital. We've been there with the Bergen Catholic baseball team a couple of years now, delivering toys around the holidays. And that's not the important point I want to make here. The important point that I want to make is the people that we have been able to meet over at the hospital are dynamic.
Yes.
They're engaged.
Yeah.
You can sense the mission in each and every one of them.
Right.
There's a sense of camaraderie and community over there. When we walk around the hospital and have a chance to go and meet some of the patients and some of the other folks on your team, it's evident.
Right.
And that, I always say it's the speed of the leader, speed of the pack.
Right.
That comes from the tippy top of the organization. I'm not blowing smoke up your kilt, you know that. It's the truth, because I've seen it live and in person. Talk a little bit about what's going on right now, just in terms of innovation over by you. What are the things that we can look forward to?
So a big part of that is, with this culture, is being what we call good stewards, which means spend your money wisely, prudently. So we are one of the highest quality, lowest cost organizations in healthcare in all of New Jersey and all the New York metropolitan region. So we score very high quality, and we're much lower operating costs because of this innovation.
What drives the lower operating costs?
So a big part of it, one of it's our employees. So our employees are more willing to just say, look, we're here. There is no task beneath us. If I see a piece of garbage on the floor and I'm a doctor or I'm a nurse, I can pick it up. It's not beneath me to do that. If I see someone needing help transporting a patient, it's not beneath me to do that.
I've watched that happen.
Right? Yep. I can do this. So that, again, that instilling that respect adds value. It actually pays dividends.
Sure.
The other is our innovation around technology. We're the only hospital in the East Coast now that writes our own software. So healthcare is becoming more and more technologically driven.
No question.
It's an area of great complexity and great expense. So for us, we save tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars by designing and executing our own software design.
Wow. Is that an initiative that you brought?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Actually, early on when I turned Holy Name around, because it was a failed computer conversion, we decided, we stabilized it, went out to bid, looked at different software companies and said, how do we do this? And the team that I used to stabilize it said, you know what, if we work this way, we can build something less expensive and more effective than what we're evaluating on the outside.
Almost innovation out of necessity at
Exactly.
that point. Yeah.
No, and Sandy, that is the critical point. The best innovation, the most meaningful innovation, the innovation that will take root is only the one that comes out of necessity.
And
when you eliminate the want, if you take the safety net away, I have to do this to survive, it forces you to a creativity. If you do it out of a purely well-funded, but academic exercise to earn more money, and there's a safety net there, you're not really going to push the envelope of innovation, and it won't really. You may hit a few things that work, but when you take away the safety net and say necessity is mandating I do this, that's where you get the real creativity.
And I think that scenario invites contamination, where this invites innovation.
Absolutely.
No question.
Exactly right.
And I think it's weaved into the fabric of the culture in the hospital, which is critically important, because that's what drives, I think, sustainable innovation.
That's right.
Where it continues, where it compounds over a long period of time. Let's talk a little bit about Villa Marie Claire, because one of the things that is high in your priorities is end-of-life care.
Correct.
And it's a challenge. I mean, we just went through it in my family recently. Talk to me about Villa Marie Claire and what's happening over there right now.
So Villa Marie Claire is a unique facility. There's nothing like it in New Jersey. It is 27 acres in Saddle River, New Jersey. The entire facility, 20 beds, but a whole lot of support space, is dedicated to one purpose only, and that's having people find quality of life at the end of life. And so that's all they deal with, is people who are determined to be terminally ill. There is no medical intervention. Anything would be futile. You come to the Villa, and we help comfort you and take you down those final days, weeks, months, hopefully.
With dignity.
With grace, and with comfort. And that's really what it's about. It was born out of clinically, some of our doctors, actually one of my former chief medical officers, a brilliant man named Paul Mendelowitz, lives here in Washington Township. Great doctor. Works for Aetna now, doing some innovation there. And he said, we need this, because medicine is not being practiced the right way. Lo and behold, we fast forward, we're in this experiment now about healthcare, big national debate, healthcare costs too much. Holy Name was one of the first to get into this experimental system called an ACO. 10,000 people, seniors, signed up for us. When we looked at it now, for the first time in history, we were able to see where those seniors, those 10,000 people, spent Medicare's dollars, from doctor's office to hospital to emergency room to nursing home. Where was the money getting spent? What we found, and I'll round the numbers off for you, 10,000 people, 9,300 of them spent on average less than $5,000 a year. 700 of them, on average, spent more than $90,000 a year.
Holy cow.
So less than 90. What was the difference? We had the names. We went back. We met with their doctors. Every single one of them. They passed away. We met with the doctor. What's going on? What's going on with Mr. Cerami? Oh, he's dead. What went on with Mr. Maron? Oh, he's dead. Universally, it was all end of life. And so when we look at it and we look at the wasteful spend in medicine, a big chunk of it is futile medicine at the end of life. And it's futile because society's not ready to deal with it. Physicians and caregivers aren't trained to deal with it. And so their whole drive and what the medical schools and the nursing schools teach them is you're supposed to save life.
Save the life, right?
Right? At all costs.
The Hippocratic Oath.
Right. But you're not. You're not really saving it. In fact, what you're often doing is extending it in a very harmful, painful way. And so reorganizing and retooling around that is really what the Villa is all about. And so it's demonstrating through action and deeds, not cheap rhetoric, that we can actually make a meaningful dent in the quality of life at the end of life when it's done the right way.
Right.
The cost savings is not the driver. The real driver is around the human interaction between families, the patient, and their caregivers. When you think about this, the textbooks will tell you, anybody who's dealt with end of life will know this. They say the best place is everybody wants to die at home. Except, and I went through this with my sister, 46-year-old sister, lived in Rochester, diagnosed with metastatic melanoma. Come down, we get her at protocol at Sloan Kettering. I get her in there. She has to live with me. My house is not designed for caring for someone with that kind of an illness, right? I, at that time, really wanted to be her brother, her older brother.
Not her caregiver.
Not her caregiver. Yeah. And so what happens when you're at home is you substitute those roles because you have no choice. Home hospice nurses, they're gems. But the reality is they're only there for an hour a day. What do you do the other 23 hours? You got to fill in that role. I was no longer brother. I was caregiver. It's not the role you want to be.
It's a very, very tough spot. As I said, we just experienced the end of life for both my in-laws. But what you're describing to me is giving care versus just feeling like you're giving in, right?
Yeah.
You're giving care.
That's right.
And lending compassion to that experience.
That's right.
Because I've watched folks die terrible ways.
Terrible.
At the end of their life.
Terrible.
And giving them an opportunity to die, as you said, with dignity and grace, I think is a gift.
Yes. And to make amends, the healing. Right, we were talking off camera before about families and dysfunctional families and risks that occur. That's universal, right? And I cannot tell you the number of families that have reconciled and healed themselves, the survivors, right, around the death experience at the Villa. Very, very important. When we started the Villa, my goal at the time, and Dr. Charlie Violotti, who runs it for us, was to take care of the patient and give them a better experience. They were our prime focus. It has transitioned in the 8 years that the Villa has operated, where I would now say it is equal, 50-50, comforting and caring for that patient the right way, and comforting and caring for the family and friends that surround that individual.
Amen. I give you an amen to that.
And so we now spend as much time and as much resources on the comforting and caring for the family around, because they're the next generation.
Yeah.
And they should. And there's a major healing process that goes through that. In the movie, if you've ever seen it, with Will Smith, called Collateral Beauty.
I have seen it.
Great movie.
Oh yeah.
Best line I've ever seen. I use it a lot of times when I'm counseling people up there. If you're losing somebody, try to step back and notice the collateral beauty. It is real. Yeah. It is there. I see it every day when I'm up at the Villa. And so to be able to tap into that and help that person who's now left behind with us here to survive and live a better life and prepare themselves for 20, 30, whatever years down the road it is, that their end of life should be better.
No question. That's bigger picture thinking.
Bigger picture.
Which is a hallmark of how you lead. I love that. Look, as we wrap here, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. You're a genuine mensch, okay? And that is not Gaelic and it's not Italian. It's Yiddish for a great person. There's so much more to the man. I hope you'll come back and spend some time with us again.
I would love to. It was an honor and a pleasure to be here.
No, I appreciate it. Once again, Mike Maron, CEO over at Holy Name Medical Center. If they want more information about Holy Name or Villa Marie Claire, where can they get it?
Go to holyname.org. Very simple. Our website will direct you to the Villa Marie Claire. It'll direct you to all our initiatives, our hospital in Haiti. You can see a whole bunch more that we didn't get to talk about as to what Holy Name is doing in both here and abroad.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would you stick around for another third segment to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, we could do that.
All right, then we're gonna come back with a third segment here on the 6th. Once again, Mike Maron, CEO of Holy Name Medical Center. Join us in a couple of minutes back on the 6th.